well, thank you.
It is a fascinating story because it's only recently come about. So I thought we could start with, how the communication started or how it all did come about.
Right, so it came out of nowhere, is where it came about. But consequently, since it came about, I have spoken to people who have asked me if there was any trauma before that, and there was a trauma before the beings.
Hello and welcome to Aliens Revealed Live. I'm your host, Dean Caparella, here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.
Someone actually brought it
From
to my
alien
attention,
abductions to monster-infested ranches to Men in Black,
they
near-death
turned up.
experiences, close
And
encounter
throughout that
experiences,
time, I hadn't
and more.
seen Zoe, so
We
she didn't
speak
even
to
know
some of
my
the
dad
most
had
amazing
passed.
people
So
on
there
the
was a
planet, ready
trauma
and
that
willing to share their
sort
chilling
of,
stories
I remember
with
there was
you.
a trauma, then it sort of
And
went
they
very
all come from the
peaceful.
Aliens Revealed
And
Live
then
files here on
it
the
was actually on the
Paranormal
18th
UK
of
Radio
October,
Network.
2017.
How do you think you would react when aliens show up at your door?
And
I'm talking about your
I was
own
on my
personal
Facebook,
contact,
and
not a
I was just
worldwide
flicking through as you
announcement,
normally do.
just
And
you
then my
alone
friend
with
Zoe had put up
ET.
this picture
Many people I
of a
speak
little
to say they
alien
would
who was
welcome it,
black,
but I'm not so
shady,
sure
with
that
a
they
big,
would
massive head, no
when put to
face
the
features
test.
at all, just
It's
a
why
little
you
head,
have
big
to
head,
respect the
small
courage
body.
of alien
And a
contact
caption above it
experiences.
that said,
Most never
"Humans,
ask
are
to be
you ready?"
contacted, and for those courageous
And I
enough to
remember
go
it
public
just
and
caught me
speak
because I
about
thought
it,
that is
that's a
just
level of
so
courage
unlike
most of us lack.
Zoe to write anything like that. We'd
Alien
never just,
visitations are usually unannounced.
unlike
They
the sort of thing
just
she
show
put
up.
up.
It
And I hadn't
happens
spoken to her
regularly.
for months,
People will
more,
suddenly
probably
feel
over
a
a couple of
presence, or
years.
they're
So
suddenly confronted in
I
their
phoned
homes
her
by beings
immediately
of
and said,
different
what's
stature.
going on?
Many
What is this
experiences
picture? And
say
she
the
said,
feeling is intrusive.
she said,
Uninvited
well, this
guests
is on the
suddenly in their
Monday,
home who
and she
look and
said,
act
over the
different.
weekend,
The result is
my
usually a
alien
piece of
family had
information
showed up.
passed on and they leave.
And I
But
remember
many
going
times
into
they are
like
there to
this
collect you for
real
whatever
like
reason, and
excitement,
before
sort
you
of
know
like,
it,
oh my
you're
gosh,
up
my
among the
friend,
stars.
my friend's
Some
seen
remember the
aliens. I've got to go and
experiences,
find out
but
what this
many
is
don't.
about.
But they have a
And
knowing that something
so I
unusual
felt,
took
I
place.
spoke to her and I said, can I
One
come
of the
round
most
tonight
amazing
later
contact
on?
experience
And
stories I've
can I
encountered
really
is
want to
from
hear all
British
about it?
experiencer
And
Annette
she went, yeah, that's
Williamson.
fine. So it was about,
Before
I know it was
October
evening, it was about
18th,
6 o'clock in the evening.
2017,
And we were
Williamson
downstairs.
probably
I
hadn't
start
even
getting
thought
really
of a
shaky when I'm
UFO,
talking.
let
I don't
alone
know if
an
it's my
alien.
nerves or the energy
And then
coming
her
back up,
life
because I start to
changed during
relive
one
the energy a
remarkable
little bit.
evening.
So I start going a bit
It was an
in
adjustment
my
she never
voice. That's just
bargained
because
on,
I get a
having to
little bit of
make.
this energy comes.
Communicating
That's all
with
right.
someone other than human is not something
And
they
I
prepare us
remember we
for
were
in
sitting in her
school.
front room,
How
and
did
her
Williamson
family were in.
react
They were
when
all upstairs
aliens
at the
showed up for the
townhouse,
first time
and
in
we were
her
just sitting
life?
having a cup of
She
tea.
joins
And
us
I
now
was
to tell
facing
us.
her, and she was
Hi,
facing the
Annette.
doorway, which was behind me like this, behind me in the hall, into the hallway. And she'd said that over the weekend she'd felt a presence. I'm really going to sum it up quickly.
Yep.
She'd felt a presence, and during the day, and she'd sort of turned around, nothing there. What is she? She's an energy healer, but she didn't know those words then. She would have called herself holistic healer, if you like.
Yep.
So she's into energy. So she said, I felt a presence. And she goes, I see. And I turned around. She said, there was nothing there. And this sign went a couple of times during the day. And then she said, in the evening, she'd gone downstairs. She was somewhere maybe in the kitchen. And she felt the same presence. But this time she looked up and she said there were 3 beings, little small beings, standing in the hallway. And she said, and I think she must have been in the front room by this point. I have got it written down word for word. Because I came home, just wrote everything down so quickly because I didn't want to forget anything. And I remember she said that she was terrified, and she said, I was so scared I couldn't even move. And she said, and then they spoke in her mind. And she said, they just said, pick up something and draw us. And if you draw us, you won't be scared of us. She does a bit of artist work as well.
Right.
So she said she had a pad. She said, I drew that picture, the one that she put up on the face. That's the one she drew. And she said, while I was drawing, she said, they were talking to me. And she said, in my mind. And then I remember I was just sitting there taking it all in, like, wow, that is so amazing. And before we'd got onto the subject of what they were talking about, although I think she probably would have said a few bits, because I must have said to her, what were they talking about? And then she just stopped. And I remember she was looking over my shoulder, and she just literally, her whole body just froze. And she was like, they're here. And
Wow.
I went, where? And she was looking over my shoulder. So I've looked immediately over my shoulder and can't see anything. And I said to her, okay. And then she said, I said, where are they? And she said, they're in the hallway. She said, they're not coming in. And because she said they never come in, they always used to sort of hover a little bit back. They wouldn't actually come into the room where she was. So if she saw them in the kitchen, she said they would stay at the hallway. And if she saw them in the front room, they'd be in the hallway. But this time they started to walk in a little bit. And she did say, she said, they're coming in. And I wasn't spooked by that point because I couldn't see anything. And
did you believe it? Did you believe her? Did you believe it?
Totally believed her.
Right.
But I didn't know what. I still hadn't taken it in, what I was talking to. I didn't know if I didn't know what. I was, at the moment, I can honestly say I was in such like, what's coming next, and I couldn't see anything. So I was just in sort of one. I totally believed her because she was absolutely petrified. And I that's what made me think, you know, her body language literally changed. She wouldn't even move her eyes. She literally went like that to the hallway with her eyes and said, they're over there. Anyway, she said to me, they want to speak to you. And I remember thinking, okay. And I went, all right. And then she said, right. And I remember her saying, they'll talk to me and I'll say it. And I went, okay. So then the first thing they said was, haven't you had enough yet? And I remember looking at Zoe thinking, and I went, what are they talking about? And she was like, I don't know. Anyway, and I know what I thought immediately, because I know this is going to sound really cheesy, but I'd just gone online dating and I thought, oh my God, are they talking? I didn't know it was aliens I was speaking to. I thought it was some sort of psychic or something from the other side. So I thought, are they talking about that? Or what are they talking about? But they jumped straight away and they went, does humans know, because she's repeating this, and they said, what does humans think happens when you pick a flower? That was the first thing they really said. What does humans think happens when you pick a flower? And I remember looking to Zoe and I was going to I don't know, dies, compost, sort of. And she just went, no, nothing dies. Energy can't die, it can only change form. Then they started talking about multiple dimension, really quite in-depth things, like a lot of things really quickly in that first hour. And Zoe was just repeating it. We didn't even have time really to talk to each other. She was just saying, they're saying this, they're asking this, they're asking you that, they're asking you this. What do we think of this? What do we think of that? And I remember her saying to her, well, who are we speaking to, Zoe? Ask them. And I said to her, ask them, are they God?
Right.
And I remember that was quite, and that I'm not religious in any way, but for some reason I had no explanation of what we were talking about. I couldn't comprehend it at all. And I remember her saying, she said, are you God? But she said, I don't understand what they're saying to me. And she said, and she goes, and I remember her saying, I can't pick it up what they're saying. I don't understand what they're saying. I can't pick it up. And they just, that left. They didn't carry on with that, and nor do I. And they went on to another song. They went on to, mostly the first hour's conversation was dimensions. They talked a lot about death. They said, you know, they kept saying, does humans know? That's what they used to say. Does humans know there is no death? And there is no night. I remember them saying that afterwards. There is no death and there is no night. And then, anyway, they didn't explain themselves too much in that first hour. And I remember as quickly as they came, they left. And it was roughly about an hour's conversation. And it was like, afterwards, it was like, what was that? Wow, that was just, Anyway, I remember saying, right, I'm driving home. I can remember the journey home like I've been run over by a train, just being like complete, utter shock. And then by the time I got home, I'd started to get these messages via text messages from Zoe, and they would say, the first message I know, she said to me, the beings have come back, they're still with me, and they've asked you this. And then that projected onto, wasn't projected, that's the wrong word, that's my dyslexia coming out, that progressed to, they'd actually say, she would just say, from the beings. She wouldn't even, and if it was from her, I would know it would be something like, hi, hun, you know, da-di-da-di-da. But if it was from the beings and they had come to her and they were speaking in consciousness, something they wanted to ask me, the message would start with just from the beings. And then that lasted with other things for about 3 months, to literally the end of January.
Right. But had you seen or heard them yourself by this stage?
Yeah, so what they started to do, because what I at first relied on Zoe very heavily because it was very, I could text her a message. I could say, ask the beings when you see them, when they come in next, ask them this or ask them that. And I'd get a message back. And we'd also opened up a Facebook page because I was so overwhelmed with the conversations that I was having. And I was telling all my friends that I said, oh, maybe we should I think I was in shock at the time as well. And I thought I was the only person in the world that's spoken to aliens, because I'd never experienced aliens. I'd never spoken to anybody else who had experienced it. I wasn't really into it. So it makes you feel like I was the only person, me and Zoe, that were talking to these beings, and it was overwhelming me, really. So I just wanted other people to just experience it. So I opened up this page, and then after that, during the time over that 3 months, what they started to do is give me things in thought, so that I might not see Zoe for 2 days, and then they would talk to me in thought, and I'd start to write it down, because they started talking about one of the first conversations they had with me was about, I asked them when they explained time, I asked them about, they'd already explained there's multiple dimensions happening simultaneously at the same time, and that it's just different states of reality and all these things. And I was like taking it all in like this. I've never heard of these things before, or nothing that I've taken in anyway. And I remember that one day I asked them about Atlantis, and it was probably when it started to grow, my initial contact with me without Zoe, because before that I really relied on her, that this is when I started to believe, because they said they talk to all humans. It goes quite deep, because they said they talk to all humans in daydreams and deep sleep dream and in consciousness. They said that we are connected, that humans have forgotten, and it happens over periods of time, and that they've been around for billions of billions of years, and that humans and aliens they've said they came in all different forms over the billions of years. And this is before they then went on to say there's no such thing as time. This is in the early stages of when they were explaining things to us. And they used our terms until we kind of learned a little bit more. And then they would take us to another level, because it was over 3 months. So yeah, they used to do things so that I could start to grow myself and trust that when they give me a thought, it's not the thought that, it's not just me. It is a thought that's coming from them. And that is the only way to put it. And they relayed that constantly with everybody. They didn't say it's just you and her. They said everybody. And they said that that all humans are connected in this consciousness. And and so are they. And so that grew. So they gave me examples, so that by the end of the day, by each day, I would, they'd give me something. I asked them if there was Atlantis. They said Atlantis hadn't gone anywhere, and it's just in a reality state that is still there. It's just that we can't see it in our current dimension that we're in now. And they said, and I remember them trying to break it down to me, because they said, if if you die, you can go there, because it's still there. But then they used to use the word death and die a lot, because they also just kept saying that, at some points they used to even call themselves death, and they'd say that death is just within a blink of an eyelid. And they said, that I remember one day they said, we were talking about death with them. It was a 3-way conversation. I'm talking to Zoe on the phone, and the beings have come into consciousness, so we're now talking 3-way. And she said, they said, does you humans know you're already dead? And I'll never forget that. And they said, because it's just a state of different reality from the one that you see. There is no separation. It's just a perception of, and they actually said death is another state of growth. They used to talk about death a lot. And I remember when I was talking about it to my friends, because I was like motor mouth, constantly going, I spoke to the beings today, and this is what we were talking about today. I could hear myself saying death, 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 death all the time. But they'd already told us that there is no such thing as death, the way we view death. So yeah, I touched loads more.
So in other words, you don't die and that's it. Is that what they meant by what happens when you pick a flower?
Yeah, because they said they said everything is made out of energy and frequency. I'm not a I'm a hairdresser, so I'm only going on what they say. So you can't ask me big technical things because I can only go on what they said. And I know they broke it. When I look down, since then I've looked at other people's experiences, and they use all these big words to describe it. And I just think they broke it down, and very simply. Some of the texts and some of the messages were so simple. They were like 6 words long. They weren't big, long, in-depth messages. They were very short and sharp, and some of them were cryptic, some of them were, I know what the overall feeling of them all was. But yeah, there was a lot of it. But sorry, what did you ask me? I've gone off track again.
Well, I was actually going to ask you about, when you talk about the consciousness aspect. So we as humans, we are energy basically in a physical body. Did they actually kind of refer to any of that about,
Constantly.
So when our time here is done, our energy goes off somewhere else?
It's not somewhere else, because everything comes. This is when it's not somewhere else. It is I suppose you could say somewhere else. But they actually gave a reference to it, because they said that death is like they said. I remember, it's coming to me now. I'm getting the exact words. They said that every time you blink, it's like a form of death, because it's they said the only truth is what you experience right now, in this moment, in this now, because there's multiple nows that are going on that you might consciously not remember. So the one that you are in now that you remember, that's your truth. And but they constantly referred to it. I remember the overall feeling that I got, because I remember the first month, I constantly insisted they were spiritual beings. I couldn't accept the fact that I was talking to aliens per se, as a separate thing, because they constantly said we're all one. They were constantly talking about energy, death. They spoke about death loads, because they just kept referring, they said there's no night, there's no day. They said it's just, they said it's energy that you perceive as shape, and it's all part of the illusion of the human experience. They said that, I know this is funny, because when I spoke in other interviews, this is exactly what they say, so I'm going to have to say it. They said there are no other planets like that. Wow. But they will be in separate contracts. So if your contract, let's say, is to look for planets when you come down into the physical form, that's what you're going to do. And if you're going to find trillion planets, and it's in your contract to find trillion planets, they said, then you will. But it doesn't mean to say they're there. And then because they said everything is perception, and everything comes from within out. I remember drawing pictures throughout it because of my dyslexia. So for me to take some of it in, because it was like turning me upside down from my day-to-day life of talking about the weather and everything, to then saying to everybody, oh, actually, the earth has got no shape.
It's turning me upside down.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
no, I mean, that's fine. That's fine.
I remember we had a little gathering once, and one of my ex-junior, it was from years ago, a few people came, and Zoe was there, and she'd asked the beings if they would come. She didn't presume that they would come, because sometimes they didn't turn up. Some days they'd come, some days they wouldn't come. So they would come when they wanted to come. So she had said that we're going to do this meeting, will you come? And they said yes. And she said to me, the beings are going to come. And there was various things we discussed, and she opened it up to people to ask them questions, if they wanted to ask the beings any questions, and they answered questions for people. And I remember one of the questions Michael said was, he went, is the world round or flat? I thought, that's a good question. I never asked that question. All the time I've been speaking to them, I never asked that question. And they said, the world, the earth, they said, earth, your world isn't round or flat. And they said, if you look up, it will keep going. And if you look down, it will keep going. They said, it's an illusion. But they found that really funny, that we asked that question, because I remember they had humor and everything, because I remember a couple of times they got angry with it. Not angry, but it frightened me because of some of their replies. That was when I started to get really aware of what I was speaking to, and I felt it as something alien. I really understood it now. And I was a bit dubious. Once that happened, I kind of took a little bit step back from it. But they explained it. They said, each person has their own perception and there's no wrong or right. So that's all they said on it. But I remember Zoe saying they're laughing. They think it's, they think you're funny because, you know, they used to look at us like flowers. And I drew a picture of it because they used to constantly say, when they were saying something about, they'd say flowers, animals, fossils, dinosaurs, plants, and then they'd come right the way round and then they'd say humans, and we were always last on the list. And it used to make me laugh. At first I'd be a bit like that, but at the end of the day I just used to laugh because I think they used to say, oh, we'll get there in a minute, you know, humans. But they'd say that they're like caretakers that have just to make sure that we are having our human experience. And that's that was constantly confirmed to me over and over and over and over in the way what they describe. I'd asked them about the Anunnaki one night because my dad wasn't here, and I thought, oh, I remember thinking about it, and I thought, let me just ask them. And it was probably the one night I can say I think I got really scared, and I sent it the question via text in the evening. I didn't even want to speak to them because, like, sometimes if I'd ring Zoe up, they knew everything that was going to happen before it happened anyway. They knew everything that was going to happen to us before it happens. They gave me quite a few examples of that at the beginning of the day. I remember one, I'll tell you about that later. But anyway, so they already knew that. So, the thought's gone now. So
no, you were asking about the Anunnaki.
Oh yeah, I asked them about the Anunnaki. So I just said, will the Anunnaki come back? I remember writing that text. And I sent it off and I didn't hear anything, and I actually went to bed. And then about 2 o'clock in the morning, I got a ting on my phone, and I just thought, oh no, because I know Zoe had said sometimes they used to wake her up in her dream. They would literally appear in her dream and wake her up and say, you've got to send Annette a message, or we want to ask Annette something, or she's waiting for this, to give her this message. And she would then, anyway, this particular time she came back and it just said, do you want them to come back? That was the first message. And I remember reading it in bed thinking, I can't answer that. They're asking me that. I remember answering for the whole human race here. And I remember thinking, no, I'm not even replying to it. And I actually felt scared because I don't know why I felt scared. And then a few minutes later, it went ping, ping. And another message come through saying, they can't come back. They came and experienced Earth, but left not having the same attachments to Earth as humans. And they said, they said they can't come back. Energies always change form. That's what they said.
Because that's interesting.
I remember sitting back, and it's now I take that to be that, we had that experience, and that probably is going on in some sort of dimension now. Who knows? However, in this now, they're not going to be in that form. They're taking on different forms because they did say they're coming. They're definitely with us, and they are going to be walking with humans at some point in our future, but not until we've come together a bit more globally. But they said again, it's all happened before. It's just you can't remember it in this now, but you have actually experienced all this before in many, many times over billions of years. Because they said once it starts diverting off track, then they said we put you back on track, and they just said, and that's how it's been done throughout cycles.
Yeah, well, you talk about, they say we're here for a human experience, meaning I take that as meaning so we're not actually human.
There's certain things I didn't ask them. There's certain things I've got now that I would say. As much as I know there is some presence going to be coming and they're interacting, they did used to call us humans, like you humans, which made it feel separated from them, because I remember feeling like a them and us feeling. But then on the other side of that, it was more joined in because I know that they feel through us. They like, we can eat, we can drink, we can make love, we can shout, we can scream, we can do all those things which cause emotion on the body. And they said, and that emotion on the body is what the whole experience is about. They said, because that energy needs a form to do that. And I remember one day we were at a coffee shop, me and Zoe, and we were just talking about the beings as normal and sort of like, wow, you know, what messages we've been getting and whatever. And I remember she saying, they're here, they've come. They spoke about our contracts with me and Zoe as well. They did say that she's meant to see him and you won't see him. You chose not to see us. And everybody during the time, the 3 months that they were very physically here and in contact with me, all my friends, including my sister, kept saying to me, don't you want to see them? Why don't you want to see them? But I can't physically see. I just used to say, in fact, I'd say, I don't want to see you. I don't want to see you. I'm quite happy as it is. I can get your, you know, I feel it. There were other experiences I had that I can tell you, physical experiences, where I can say, like, there was something put in my back. And when I tell people, and even when I say it now, it sounds bizarre, me saying it, but there was a physical, I woke up one day and I came downstairs and I remember going for a cup of tea and my shirt caught something on my back.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, oh, what's that? What's that? Went up to the mirror and it was really round. It was about this tiny little round circle, completely round. And it was about maybe smaller than my little fingernail and really raised and saw like pulsating, really pulsating.
Right.
And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know what that is. Anyway, I spent about 2 weeks asking people what it is. But what I realised, it still is now, still got it now, is that it used to be attached to my emotion. If I used to be because I was in a state of shock for the first 3 months because I was speaking to them daily. And every day they were giving me new information. Do you know this? What do you think of this? Why do humans do that? Why do you think humans do that? It was constantly messages and conversations like that. And then this thing appeared. And I remember just saying to Zoe, I don't feel like I want to ask the beings what it is because I feel like it's something to give me like a physical, tangible thing because it used to give me pain. It's not a nice experience, but it would pulsate and it would go pulsate. And it would normally be when they were around or I was feeling emotional or I'd start to cluck in. And I still don't know what it's all about. But I do know that I still get the sensational now. If I'm doing, because it's not in my face no more and I'm back calmer and I'm not thinking about alien beings 24/7 of the day, which I was up to about a year ago. Because I've slightly calmed down, I still wake up every morning and think, oh, wow, I suppose aliens. It still hits me like that. I'm still in that early stage of shock.
Yeah.
But it's calmed down. But this pulsating thing on my arm, I had the scar for about 2 years. It lasted for ages. And then it kind of sunk inside and then it's like electric currents. It's the only way to describe it to people.
Did they put it there to perhaps monitor your emotions?
That would be what I would say the old me would have said in a 3D world. But because I've grown since then and I did think it could be to monitor, it still could be to monitor my emotions back then, but I'm not so emotional now and I'm much calmer now. But I don't know. It's sort of like, I have no idea why it's there. I do feel it's to give me a physical experience to remind me that they're about, but then that it might be because I also totally know that everything that we now, as I've evolved, my way of thinking is not so much that now. I literally, when I wake up in the morning, sometimes I must have been traveling, I don't know where I am, but it's always strongest in the morning. I literally have a sense of being in these multi-dimensions and just traveling through this dimension. So it's not so 3D for me as I can say, yeah, it was put there like I used to say 3 years ago. Yeah, I've got this thing in my back, it pulsates and it's attached to my emotions. It's something else, but I don't know what it is.
So you've communicated with them following that initial 3 months. So do they communicate directly with you now?
Yeah. And I had that, as I said, it was like being back at school because I didn't trust it. So I used to keep referring back to Zoe and ring her back up. And, if something came through, I'd say, oh, I think the beings spoke to me and I think this is what they've said. Or I'll say to her, or sometimes I try and test it. So because I didn't quite believe it. So I'd ring up and say, oh, they've been around today. If they said anything. And she'd say, yeah, they said, blah, blah, blah. And I'd go, oh, yeah. okay, that's what I've got written down at sort of 10:30 this morning.
Right.
So, you know, that gave me the confidence to realise, because they wanted to reinstate. I remember they sent me this message once saying, don't be ashamed of what you're experiencing in the moment. You chose it like this. So, you know, just relax. They said, keep calm.
Talk about, you mentioned in your notes, astro traveling. What was all that about?
Well, they used to do a lot of astro traveling with Zoe. I didn't know anything about that. I had to go and Google that and look it up. Because I don't think, they probably did with me, but I didn't remember it. There was other things that I had, but I know they did a lot of astro traveling with Zoe, because Zoe, it's really weird because Zoe was she was doing lots of stuff. She was astro traveling. She was going to different dimensions. They'd come into her quite a lot of things. So she did more astro traveling than me. However, they did say that we all do it. It's just that some people remember it and some people don't remember it, but we all do it. There was a few funny, I flew one night. Mm-hmm. In my consciousness. That was a very weird thing, because that's never happened to me before, and it was very short. And I remember raising up off the ground, looking at my grandson and one of my friends sitting on a bench, and they were watching me go up. And I remember this just feeling of being lifted up, and you know, like I went up like you would go up, which is like your hands sort of like that, and your body. I wasn't stiff like this. I was sort of thinking, oh, I'm going off the ground. I need to put my hands out. Am I going to unbalance myself, sort of? Yep. And I flew around in a figure 8 one day, and that was quite weird. And I heard a woman's voice tell me to sleep one night, and I had a few vivid dreams, which the beings had said I was going to have. But I always said to them, I don't really remember my dreams, and I'm quite a light sleeper. And they said, you will remember these ones. And I did remember them, because they made me very ill the next day.
Right.
But now I think, are they dreams? Are we astro traveling? Are we dimensional hopping? You know, are these different states of realities that we're going in, and we just call them these states? It's much bigger than just.
What did they ever tell you what race they are? What ET race they are?
They just said they are they called them. I'll tell you what, we called them Tron, because they didn't give us a name. We didn't say what race they are. They said that they'd come from consciousness, and they take on many forms to many different humans. And in our illusion, our experience here on Earth, we wanted to experience them as these 3 beings. We didn't ask what race they came from, because by the time I suppose we would have got to that point, they'd already explained to us that everything we're experiencing is coming from in out. Mm-hmm. So I suppose there are going to be lots of different races to lots of different people when they actually. I can't explain it. It's really hard to explain. They didn't give me a race, because they'd already explained that the other thing they said is everything's consciousness, just layers and layers and layers of consciousness, and what you experience within that consciousness. So they'd all explained already that. So there was no need for me to ask them, where have you come from? I don't know. I'd have to ask Zoe, because she might have asked that question very at the beginning.
Right.
Could have been a question that was asked at the beginning. I never asked them where they'd come from. I don't know why. I don't know why I asked certain questions and why I didn't ask certain questions.
Yeah. So they're. I'm just trying to probably want to ask this the right way. So as energy and consciousness themselves, so they're able to take any physical shape or appearance that they like?
Yeah.
So what have you seen what they look like? I don't think I asked you this earlier.
Yeah, well, I can only go. I mean, I asked Zoe to draw me pictures, because and as soon as she drew me a picture, I used to feel them in my living room when I was writing, and they always used to be in a certain corner. And even though I can't explain that, I feel the energy sort of pulsating, feeling it. But they were very short. They weren't even 1 meter high. They had big heads and just 2 arms and 2 legs. They didn't have clothes, or they didn't have mouth, face features, because I was constantly saying to her at the beginning, what do they look like? What do they look like? What do they look like? And she just explained the same thing. And but they said that they can send messages through everything. They said everything's connected, and they said you as humans have lost that, you've forgotten it, and they said but you will remember again, because the next generation that comes is, they spoke about DNA, they spoke about atoms, DNA, proteins, and things like that. They spoke a lot about things like that. But they said, you've got a next generation. Each generation is like DNA enhanced from the parents. And they said that the next generation that's coming are going to be, they're going to have an oxytocin hormone, which when we went and looked it up, I've got a picture of it actually. It's actually on my fridge. You might be able to see it. It looks like a honeybee.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's actually what the gene looks like.
That's to do with love, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's not until I had an interview with someone, and she was a midwife, and she said to me, it's what the female produces when she's giving birth in the body. So, right. But they didn't mention anything about that. They just said that they actually said that other beings are bored with the current realities that have been churning around, because they said it's all cycles, and we're all churning around these emotions, and we're all having the same experiences, and it's been the same experiences just keep reverting round. And they said that all beings are bored, and they literally said not just you humans, it's not just you humans that are bored with the current realities, all other beings are bored with it. And they just went, so it's changing. And they went, and what you're experiencing, or you're going to experience, I mean, it was back then, so they said, what you're going to experience as a race is this big shift in consciousness. And they said and the way they described that is that they are going to be they literally said, we're going to go and visit more humans. We're going to be interacting in more humans' realities. Because they were saying that in the future, they were going to be walking with us. I asked them that. And they said, yes, we will walk with you. But they went, humans need to see themselves as a global family before we can all interact.
Right.
So,
that consciousness shift is, I mean, it's going on right now. I mean, we look at the CE5 community at the moment, and they're growing by the thousands. But you also talked about upgrade, and you mentioned the DNA change. Are they responsible for our DNA improving with each generation?
Yes.
Because, I mean, it's only been, well, if that's the case, I would say then it's only been in the last 100 or so years, because prior to the Industrial Revolution, we were basically pretty much the same for a long, long time.
We haven't changed at all. We haven't changed since Enoch.
No.
I mean, if you read anything biblical, even though I know now, I mean, I loved history, and I actually couldn't wait for the shock to get over, because I remember thinking, am I ever going to enjoy watching telly again? And am I ever going to be able to enjoy watching something about history again? Because I used to get enjoyment from that. Even now, now it's the feeling's gone as such, and they still talk to me through it. But I can, when I used to read anything before the beings, it used to make me laugh, because I used to read about, I had an interest in anything biblical, anything old that spoke about anything. Why were we here? Mm-hmm. Where have we come from? I've always had that initial gut feeling, those questions. And I remember when the beings turned up, they answered, although I can't remember it now. I remember in that 3 months period, I can truly say, I think there was nothing that they hadn't answered. They had talked about everything. They talked about how it works, how the dimensions work, how the humans work, how they interact with humans, how it's been going on for absolutely ever. And they'd explained everything. And I remember thinking, oh, it's like having a big jigsaw puzzle, and they've just come in and gone boom, 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 and that's complete. And I remember thinking, oh, I hope I always remember it. And then as the years have gone, you forget. There's just clippets that you remember now. They come in. I mean, they have spoken to me about current events or what's going on. They came in quite a lot at the beginning of the year to say what was going on and what's happening. So they did interact, and so there's a lot going on. I mean, with this shift, I remember when they first said, they actually said to me, your children's children will have a different reality from you. And they said, one that you don't have, one that humans, they said a choice coming, one that humans don't have now. And I remember thinking, okay, so it's something different then. And they said, there's going to be a time of love and sharing. And they said, your children's children. Now, my grandchildren are already here. My grandchildren are like 7 and 8, and it's in their generation. And they said, I would see the start of it at the end of my lifetime. This new reality that's coming in.
Right.
And it's quicker than I thought, because I remember 2 years ago, I was talking about it, and my friends were all saying, well, how's he going to get there? What's going to happen? World War III? What's it going to be? Because I can't see how it's going to change. And I went, I don't know, because I didn't ask them how. I took it, they told me that, I took it as that, and that's that. So I didn't think it'd be a virus that was going to come in, and you can't. I know that they said we're going to new realities, and that's all I needed to know. I didn't know.
I'm just trying to join the dots here. So we're having a DNA upgrade every generation. You mentioned the substance oxytocin. And it seems to me like, and then you talk about they want us at a level where they can walk with us. It seems to me that they're trying to force out of us our warring nature and our violent ability.
Yeah, I know it sounds horrible to say this, but you kind of got it on the head a little bit, because, I don't like talking about this, and I don't rarely have an opinion on anything, because I tend to say as neutral as I can. But there are certain things they've said to us that I can't deny what they said. So first of all, when they first came, they said humans were divided. They said humans are a divided race, and that they'd come to heal the division. That was in the first hour-long statement. And then over the time, and some of my other friends, Zoe's done some interviews as well. So I went a bit quiet, as I said to you, I've gone a bit quiet now, because there were still things going on, and I wasn't sure if I was brave enough to actually come out and say what the beings have been saying. But I know Zoe has been speaking as well, so it gave me a little bit of confidence, because I thought, all right, I know she's been, they're saying the same things to her as they're saying the same things to me. What they said was that they said there's going to be lots of changes, and they said, like, things that I know that are going to change is the fact that they said that when the humans have made earthly life a competition, and they said, all you think you've got to do is make money. They spoke about money, they spoke about things in the future, as there's going to be no money in the future. Well, in this choice, I don't know what the choice is, but within the choice, I know there's going to be no money. People will be healing themselves. They'll be going back to nature, and there'll be more community oneness within the human race. But it is a choice. They did say it was a choice. They didn't, because I remember thinking, well, they didn't say it's for everybody. They said it's a choice, because it's all about choices, because you come down, you take on this form, and then you experience your contract. And they said that there is no, they don't see things as we see it. They don't see like a negative or a positive. They just say it's an energy. You perceive it the way you want to perceive it. You can either take a positive out of it or a negative out of it, but it's your choice to do which one. So they were quite neutral, but they did say something, because I spoke about it to one of my friends, and I said, it's almost like they are saying, you don't need, like I said, you humans don't need people to control you. You think you do, but you don't. And I said, oh, it's a bit insightful, isn't it? It's a bit like, oh, what they're trying to tell us to do. But the thing they are in communication, as far as I'm concerned, and it's my personal perception of what I've experienced with every single human. There's not one, they're not in communication with only the people that are doing good things, and the people that are going to do bad things. It's like they're not in communication with them. They're in communication with everybody, because everybody's walking around in our own realities. And we think we are seeing it like it is, but it's not as we see it. And it's how it's portrayed. And they said I remember them sort of explain it like, I had to explain it like this. I said, if you go to the dentist and you get like a feeling of butterflies in your stomach because you're nervous, that's the experience your energy's feeling. It's experiencing that, because it's all about emotion. I said, but then if you're then going to do something that you're really excited about, and it's a really positive thing in your life, you will still experience butterflies on your stomach. So that's how they gave me the good, bad, you know, the actual, what you will experience. It's what you experience, how you feel things. Yeah. There's going to be lots of people doing lots of things, and that's okay, because that's in their contract to do that. I'm not here to say you mustn't do this or you mustn't do that, because I have total faith in the beings are directing us as to where we want to go. And we've got people who've got to remember that they are, like here we've got Boris as our, you know, as our Prime Minister. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've had questions, well, they're not talking to Boris then. I thought, well, they didn't say we're talking to everybody apart from Boris. You know, everybody's reacting in their own realities. If you buy into it or not is your reality, but we are programmed, and we've been programmed to do these cycles for a long time. So it's going to take something massive to deprogram us to think about something different. Right. So I have all trust in what they're doing.
Yeah. So, and that's one question I would have asked them. You know, you mentioned your Prime Minister. I would have asked them, do you also communicate with our world leaders? I mean, and if you do, who?
They do.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
All of them, because not everybody's here to do certain things. Everybody's here to experience different realities. So I remember asking them about the military, asking them if, you know, are you in the military? And they almost laughed and said, well, of course, of course, we've been there since the military was the military, since we've been in everybody's. So someone says from the military that they experienced something in 1976 and that's how it was. I totally believe that, because even if they're saying it in thought, it's happened somewhere in reality. Because they said every thought from your mind comes from an action already done or to be told.
Right.
So everything we're experiencing, we've either experienced it or we're going to experience it. But the bottom line is it's all an illusion for humans to experience emotion. So don't get too caught up in it, and don't get too, they used to say to me, keep grounded. Remember, it's just something you wanted to experience. So, everything is moving for the better.
So people who you know, who come up with you know, life-changing ideas, and people who make a lot of money out of inventions, and so those ideas are out there. They've already been thought of. And
yeah, because I described it like this the other day, because I remember thinking, I said, well, we all think we have these new ideas, but all we're actually doing is subconsciously, in consciousness, reach into a dimension where it's already happening, and we've already done the idea, and we're just bringing it from that place to this place, from that reality into this reality. So there are no new ideas. We're you know, regurgitating ideas that we're already doing in multi dimensions, and that's why you get people from all over the place having experiences at the same time, even though they're completely unrelated.
Yep.
And yeah, that part of it, yeah, you got it. I felt that was amazing, because I that made me chuckle when I remembered that, because I remember they put it to me. And the other thing they used to say as well, they said that they spoke about 0, 1. And I remember them talking about numbers one day, because I am definitely not a mathematician, so I don't know anything about that. And it'd be really interesting if someone does. Because they said, does humans know that all numbers after 0, 1 may seem like they are separated, but all numbers can value within 0, 1? So, and I remember that thinking, oh, I need to send that to somebody that's into maths or something, because I don't know what that means. But
did you find out what it means?
No, because I didn't ask them.
Oh, okay. Well,
it was at the end of things. It was one of the statements. It was quite interesting though. But I do think that I remember them saying they used to laugh at our use of words, and they would pull about words. They would ask us why we use certain words and what we felt it meant. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head quickly with labels, because they talk about. We spoke about bipolar and mental health one night, because both me and Zoe, we asked them why, and what is dyslexia, what is word blindness, why do people have it? And they explained it. They just said that every human brain works differently, and that it's all energy, and that we've perceived the energy, but really it's just someone's choice that they don't want to experience the words in this reality. And they went on to explain about mental health, and they put it to me because I'd done some counselling years ago I used to do counselling years ago. And I remember one of my friends is bipolar, and I'd gone through the whole episode with her from the point of view, not as a counsellor, as a friend, to show her what happened the other end, because she wanted to write a book. And I remember them bringing back to that, and they said, what happens with people who, with what you classed as mental health, because they sort of had a go at us about mental health, and they sort of said, who are humans to judge other humans about how they want to experience their reality on Earth? And I sort of say, yeah, it's true, we can't. And they said, you know, each one of you is individual, and each one of you has got aspects of your life that you will experience, and you've got labels, and you box people up into these boxes, and it's so far from that. And they said, with bipolar, what people with bipolar, because you know they have split personalities and they're in different various places, well, they basically said they said you normally, when you're experiencing your personal experience, you only remember what you're seeing right now in this dimension. And they said with people that you call mental health people, they are experiencing multi-dimensional dimensions. They said, as you do, but they remember it all in the now. Whereas though you only remember it, you probably don't remember it at all, because it's happening when you're asleep, or it's happening when you're unaware, or when you're thinking or dreaming, or you're communicating that way. They said with people with bipolar, they are experiencing all those many multiple realities, but they remember them right now.
Right.
And I just thought the penny dropped, and I thought that is so true. But makes even sense. With that, that's changing. See, the new that's come in is going, like, all our children now are going to be super sensitive, and they are going to be exactly ready for what they need to do in order for us to get to this place, wherever that is, wherever's come in. I know it's good, and I know it's going to be. And the other thing they said as well, which kind of contradicts, they said about the 3D and the 5D and all that sort of D stuff, because again, I'm not really into it because I'm dyslexic, so I haven't really looked into it, but I kind of got the gist of it, as in, you know, the 5D people now are, they're almost slicing into different realities and bringing it into this reality and feeling it. So I know it's that. But they did say for us to evolve from that, we have to go through a process of death, because they said you can't, because you can only expand to a certain amount in your world that you are now. You have to evolve. So it's a process. And they said it's a process. So your process is death. And once you death, you reincarnate. It's our old word of viewing it. They didn't use that. They never used that word. They never used our words. They used to use things like energy, or, they said once, that when you die, they said it's like that. They said it's like that. There's no waiting room. They said you have a choice instantly, because consciousness knows no time, and the beings don't have time. It's only we work on this time. They said time's man-made. You know, the word death is man-made. They said it's all things that you've brought in. It's nothing to do with us. And they said, you know, we don't see time as you see time. So they said when you pass, they said you can come back like that. And they went, you can come back in this generation or that, into the multiple dimensions.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That was pretty cool.
Yep. All right. Well, you mentioned, how we put things in a box, and I know I was going to say God included. We always put him in a box as well. But so last couple of questions. Firstly, do they have the ability to heal?
Yes.
But we also have the ability if we remember how to do it.
Yeah, but they can help us, and they do help us. And they did some healing once in one of our gatherings. I mean, we couldn't see them, but Zoe literally said they're around her now. They're walking up and down and they're around her, and they do visit people like that in consciousness, and you might not feel it. I mean, people feel things all the time, and I really do think, as much as it's like we see it in this 3D world now, it's really not as we think it is. It's completely different, and over time we will experience that. I mean, the first thing they're going to realize is that there is only consciousness. Once we've sussed out there's only consciousness, then you can see how the next bricks will build up. Once people lose fear, because there's only fear of death, fear of being poor, fear of pain or whatever. If fear was annihilated and there was no that, then that would go. I know they told me that I remember at the beginning of the lockdown, they said that humans are going to experience a more equal life. They said this in February or something. I wrote it down. I did put it up on my Facebook page, and I was like, I don't know how people are going to want to hear this. Because I was driving through Hastings with my sister, and they came and spoke to me about these buildings, and I was looking out at these office buildings, and they just said, all office buildings will be given to the homelessness. And they said, and cruise ships. And I remember thinking, that's weird, it was random. They went, there will be no homelessness, equals come in. And I remember turning to my sister, this is well before the epidemic, and I said, it's going to be no homelessness in the future, and all our office space is going to be given to homelessness. And she went, oh, that's good. And I went, they've just said that. I said, that's good, isn't it? I said, they've just said that and I said, they showed me a picture of big cruise ships. And they said they are all going to be given to, there won't be, business like that will not be in this reality. It's going to be a different reality. It's quite amazing, really. So as tough as it gets, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And I realise now, when I look at things, when I'm seeing things in different light, they've been around forever. And they have been around forever. And they've spoken to everybody in some form or way. It's just that we forget.
Does this include other beings in other worlds?
They said there are many other beings, not just humans. They didn't just say one kind of human. They said there are many other beings.
So they speak to them as well?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Can
I just say about the UFOs and things like that quickly?
Sure.
Because they didn't mention UFOs, but a lot of people will there's going to be more of everything. Although at the moment, I think that in consciousness, it's because of what's happening. It's like a magician. While we're all watching this hand, something else is happening with this hand. So, and that's where I feel we're at now. We're all focusing on this because there's not, in the UK, I'm not really hearing so much UFO sightings. The crop circles went down this year. There's less things like that, but more conscious growth.
Oh, there's an explosion in the consciousness community, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that early on in the interview when you asked, or your friend asked, about whether they were God or not, just listening to you talking about them now, that would have been the first thing I would have asked. Because
it was the first thing I asked.
And it just makes
I asked them twice. Again,
yeah.
We did ask them again. It wasn't we asked them once, because I kept saying it over and over.
Yeah.
And we eventually got an answer where they said, there is no one divine being. There is only a collective, connected consciousness with many beings. And then they actually literally said, well, if you like, we are if you want a creator, you can call us the creators. And I remember saying to Zoe, not sure about that, because they never called themselves God. We never called them God. We called them the three beings forever until we called them Chon, which was CHON. And that was only because they were explaining atoms to us one night and proteins and things that, I wrote it all down. I was trying to pretend like I knew what they were talking about. I had to go and research it all. And they said carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen were the four basic building blocks for all life, including other beings, not just human life, including other beings.
Yeah.
So we started morphing into calling them Chon. So they would say, instead of them saying the three beings said, does human, because they would give us sort of cryptic notes like that. They would say, Chon, does human, oh no, they said another few things they said rainwater was the best to drink, because they said humans are no different from plants and animals. You're no different. You think you're different, but you're no different from plants and animals. You're the same carbon base. And in small amounts, rainwater. And I said to them, what about all the pollution and all the airplanes and all that stuff? And they just shut me down and they went, water from the high is the best water, Tron's water. Because they were starting to call themselves not the three beings or aliens or anything. They started calling them whatever we felt comfortable with. We could have called them three Mickey Mouses as far as they're concerned. They didn't care what we called them. And the other thing they said was seaweed, eating vitamin A and a bit of rainwater in the eyes and to drink a little bit is good for cataracts. They said it will heal cataracts.
Cool. That's good to know. Well, to me, they seem like an omnipotent presence. I get the word out, and it's just fascinating. And
it's all, it is absolutely blind. I mean, when I'm talking about it, sometimes now when I'm talking about it, it just feels quite like, wow. I'm still at that state, but
yeah, I mean, are you at that? I mean, is your relationship with them? Like, as you say, we've all got a relationship with them. But say we were doing an interview here on this platform right now. Do you think that you could actually call them in?
They're with me now.
Are they?
Yeah, because they come in and out of my consciousness. They're because I could be talking to you about something, and they'll start giving me pictures or showing things, and you know, like, that's why I'll come up with a sentence where I know exactly what the sentence is, because the whole thing is given to me like a picture. So dyslexic minds work slightly different anyway. So I see things in picture form when I'm relaying. In fact, always see picture form or video form.
Okay.
So they come in and out. Yeah, and sometimes I get really cold. I've put the heating on today because when they sort of go like that, it feels like they come in and they'll go, buh, 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 and then they go, and then they'll come in and go, buh, 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 buh. I think we've covered everything they want to cover, because before today, leading up to doing any interview, I have an empty day. I just don't see anybody.
And they don't mind you sharing this information?
No. The one thing they want to do is share. Although they told me I don't have to share, because I did ask them what's my contract and what am I meant to do now I've seen you? What am I supposed to do? Go and what should I do? And they said, you don't have to do anything. They said all you've got to do is love yourself. And I'm ever thinking, oh, that was quite a nice message. You know, they said, yes, you must go out and proclaim it to the world and tell everybody we're here. They didn't say any of that. They said people do. They said each one of us has a contract to do. They said they did say word loves me. I remember that one day, because I was writing everything down for 3 months. I don't know how I held it together. Every day I wrote the time of the texts, what was said, where it came, who was there, who it was to. I mean, for 3 months straight, after being dyslexic, not writing anything. I remember like fighting it. I mean, people call it something else now. It's a special name, isn't it, when you do writing and it's coming from somewhere, and I didn't know any of that. So that's what it was like. I was writing like this.
Like a download.
Yeah, but I'm dyslexic. I don't write anything, and I'm writing things down, and I'm getting the right spelling, because they would give me the spelling. If I couldn't spell it, they would give me the spelling in my mind, like and I think, oh, right. And afterwards, when I read it back, I think, oh, it's going to sound like goggly goop, because I know what my words come out like, because I can't spell very well. But I was actually astounded by my own writing after. I was thinking, wow, did I actually write that? That's amazing stuff.
Wow.
But I used to get the hump. I didn't want to do it, because sometimes I'd be really tired and I didn't want to write anything down. And then I remember saying to Zoe, I remember ringing her up one night and going, oh, you know, I'm really, this writing it all down, it's actually doing my head in. And she went, oh, you know, you'll be all right. Maybe like both of us had decided, you know, she didn't want to do it. She was channeling the messages. One of us had to write it down. She was channeling it at that point, so I was doing all the writing. And she just came back with one, said, the being said word loves you. And I was like, whatever. It's just like, they just want me to write it down. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, Annette, it's been a really fascinating discussion, and I'm sure we could keep talking for hours here, but we've just run out of time, and we'll have you back for sure. Yeah,
and I'll send you some pictures if anybody. I mean, I did over 30 pictures, and I wrote, as I said, loads of stuff, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I had ignitions to put it into a book, but everything's consciousness anyway, and, you know, people might want to read it. They might want to read it, might not. I don't know. So I'm at the moment, I'm not sure what to do with it. At the moment, I'm just talking about it. I haven't actually put anything down into writing as such, apart from their basic messages, it's all very, you know, like notepad. But,
okay.
Thank you for having me on. It's been lovely.
No, it's been a pleasure, Annette. Thank you.
That's contact experiencer Annette Williamson. Buddy Bolton may not be a household name, but there's little doubt that he is a remarkable individual with abilities beyond what most of us have.
There's a way to tie this whole subject together, and it's going to take a moment to express it all, but basically the there's something called the two-slit experiment. And this is an experiment in physics. And basically, to make a long story short, what it kind of proves is that human consciousness affects physical matter, and that our consciousness isn't separate from the universe, that our consciousness is literally woven into the universe. So consciousness has an ability to affect our surroundings. And some people have more of an ability than others for a variety of reasons. Oftentimes at hauntings, you'll find a distraught young woman or a distraught child. And the way that I look at it is these are creations of the child. They're not separate ghosts or demons from hell or any of that stuff. These are literal creations of the child. And there are other things that can be created by the mind. And at Skinwalker Ranch, the different people who've gone there have had different experiences based on the type of person they were. If it was a military soldier, they would have a very militarized kind of hostile experience. If they were a empathic, caring person, they'd have beautiful light shows or a neat swirl of nature. So, ultimately, Jacques Vallée, who's one of the premier UFO investigators, and Eric Davis, one of the premier behind-the-scenes physicists, they came up with a model of our universe, of our reality, that states that somehow consciousness is more involved than we even think. They didn't take any further leaps. But I take that next big leap and say that there is this ability to do all these things. And the human mind can not only touch different places, it can build things. It can create illusions. And under the right circumstances, it can do some physical things that just would melt your reality. And it sounds too fanciful, but I've seen too much, and I've been a part of too much. I've been able to demonstrate the ability to affect machines at a distance. I've been able to do that consistently. And even when people pray, oftentimes someone will say, "Would you pray for me?" And there's been tons of studies on the power of prayer. And that is acting over a distance. And the power of prayer does help people. There's no question it affects people. And it affects dramatically even. And that's psychokinesis right there, affecting something physical at a distance. And, I think we're so, we teach our kids about physical education as they grow up, but we don't give them consciousness education.
Right.
And exploring your consciousness, exploring your abilities, and exploring this as a very legitimate subject. Now that, there's people who can repeat these phenomenal events, can do amazing things, and it's repeatable. It helps the scientific world because now they can say, like, oh my gosh, this person can do it and can repeat it. Now we can try a bunch of experiments on it and see if it can go this way or it can go that way. So I've been experimenting everything from doing the crystals to remote viewing distant celestial objects to military, potential military threats, to criminals, to archaeological sites. Missing kids, all sorts of things. And it's just been such a fun and wonderful exploration.
That's remote viewer Buddy Bolton. Bolton is in high demand to perform work for some of the world's most powerful organisations. This is an interview you don't want to miss. It's coming up on the next episode of the Aliens Revealed Live Files. You won't want to miss it. And thanks for being with us. Don't forget to check out our site at arlhub.com. That's arlhub.com. And as always, keep looking upwards and take care.